Yeah, it's a tug of war. It's a love-hate. I don't want to admit that I actually like you and I have feelings for you, so I'm not going to say them. But I'm going to be next to you and you know, and then sometimes I get a little bit too close, and sometimes, yeah, it's like that.
Your character network and the audience made
You always bring your personality into your characters. I think it's the only way to keep it real. But there's a lot of things I don't. I love my family. I run to them, not from them. You know. I get a lot. I built Zed around all the girls I saw growing up who were running from their families and grew up in the rough neighborhoods, because I grew up in a rough neighborhood and I grew up, you know, not in the ritziest places, you know, and a lot of street smart and a lot of walls and a lot of I'll kick your ass coming into play, and not being so open, and when it does come open, it's an overflow of emotion. That to me, that's what I'm doing with Zed. It's coming to those girls who did grow up running away. She's a strong woman. I as an actress, I shy away from the victim, from, you know, the woe is me, life is so horrible, help me. I don't believe that. I believe that life is horrible, change it, make good of it. And I love when I read who she was, and even though in her toughness, she is so close to people and she feels them, and she wants to be a part of their world in a certain way too. So that to me, that's who we are. You know, nowadays women we're like that, and I that's what drew me in. I mean, aside that's from DC Comics, these great monsters around it. You know, it's very partial to me. Favorite scene would be in episode 5 between Constantine and me, and because it's very raw. It's very raw. It's no walls.
Funny is, like, you know, when we started this thing, I was saying to David, you know, when we started this thing, you know, it's the pilot and it's all this exciting and stuff, and then you go to work, and you know, I've never done anything. I've played lead roles in plays. I think that's what stood me in good stead. Is like when I was 22, I left drama school. I went straight to the Royal Shakespeare Company and I played a huge fuck-off lead role. And I think that, like, it's a very different medium and it's a very different discipline, and you have to have a completely different kind of regime to kind of to sustain things. But I think that it ultimately has my theatre background and playing lead roles stood me in good stead. The one thing is that the pace at which it goes, it's, you know, it's liberating, because you don't, sometimes as an actor, you know, you can get up in your head, you know, was this good, was that good, you don't have time, you're just like, gone, next, you know, and you just have to keep on moving forward and keep on being, it's good because it forces you to be in the moment, do you know what I mean, rather than having too much space around something where you can get up in your head. But it's a journey, man. It's a journey. I feel like, you know, we're on episode 9 now. We start episode 10 next week. And I just feel like from what we started, like, it's been a hell of a ride. And we're really in I think we're really in a good place with it now. A lot of things have come together. I think just by. It's a funny thing, isn't it? It's like in theatre, you know, how many people play Hamlet? It's like, well, what's different about your Hamlet? Well, it's you. I think that's the main thing. There's the one thing I tried to do is just keep on going back to the comics. Do you know what I mean? Just even if it's just I'm not thinking about like, oh, I need to put this into it or put that into it, but just to read it. So it's always kind of subliminally going on in my mind. You know, it's always something that's taking over. I mean, and it's hard because it's so we're working so many hours that, you know, you get home and then, you know, you want to stick a scary movie on to kind of, you know, do a bit of research or read a comic, and then, you know, you start shitting yourself when you see shadows walking past the door and you're like, this is not healthy. But no, it's but yeah, so I try to keep kind of that going on in the background so that everything that I'm doing is tied to the DNA of that. And, you know, it's me, there's other bits that come and other bits that go, but the source is that, and that's what I'm trying to kind of keep true. But have that kind of that diversity, and someone who's an utter bastard and you love and hate at the same time. You know, like most of it's hard because in the comics he's a complete and utter bastard, and it's like for TV, you can't just do that because, you know, okay, the hardcore fans will love him, but there's a whole other people that you want to bring into this, and in the medium of TV, there has to be qualities about this character that draw him in. So there's certain elements of the character that I tried to lift earlier on, and then I think that as we've gone on, he's getting darker. He's getting darker, and even though he starts out in such a dark place, I think that he's going to get darker and darker, and it's going to get more fun in that way. But I think like it's so much. It's great to be able to play, you know, the really dark shit, and then just, you know, flick a bird. You know what I mean? It's like, and you know, I think it's fun. It's fun. It's like it's such a fun role in that way. And sometimes I have to stop myself from having too much fun because it is a lot of fun. Because after I got the job, we had 2.5 weeks before we started the pilot. So David and Daniel and a bunch of the DC guys sent me a bunch of comics that they thought would be relevant for the pilot, or the, you know. So I've been jumping around the place, and they're kind of all just a jumble now in my head, and I haven't read them all yet. But like the Dangerous Habits storyline, and I mean that's so far away from where we are now because we're starting pretty much where the comic books start. So, you know, we've got a long way to go to get there. If we get there, if we go there, you know, and which I'd love to. That's my favorite. Like we, you know, you've seen The Blacklist. James Spade is, you know, chuffing on a cigar.
Right.
It's like we're doing that. It's just that what we're not doing. You can't inhale. That's the thing. And the one thing that I've done is I've first of all, when it was announced that we weren't smoking, it was like, we are, but we're just not. We're not like in the comics. In every panel, he's got a cigarette in his mouth. I mean, it's like we can't do that. But like, so I kind of see it as a challenge that every episode, it's like, okay, where can we put it in? How do we get it in? So it's like, it's something to kind of look out for. Yeah, exactly. It's like something to look out for rather than. There's two ways of approaching it, I thought. I can either be pissed off because this character's a smoker and he has to be a smoker to me, and I can either be pissed off by going, shit, we can't do it fully the way we want to do it, or it can be a challenge. And that's kind of how I've approached it, and we are doing it, we're just not doing it in every close-up. The Hellblazer. It's interesting because like we're pretty much basing it from the Hellblazer stuff, and I've read a couple about four of the new 52. I mean, there's stuff to take from it. I think that, like, in terms of production, there's good stuff. The way it looks, you know, there's stuff to take from there. But we're pretty much going with the Hellblazer stuff. It's a mixed match of this world that was created by Alan Moore, you know, and it's like, you know, there's so much of it, you know. You just take as much as you can and try and play.
Did you learn any magic tricks or just rely on CGI?
I wanted to like learn card tricks and stuff, and like, do you know these things that people do with the balls? I learned, and then they disappear.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn that, but I just haven't had time. Maybe if we get to second series in my hiatus, I'll go to magic school. But no, I haven't actually had the time to actually do it for real.
I mean, I had been reading Constantine since he was introduced in Swamp Thing, and that early arc I think was American Gothic. So we thought the first season is loosely adapted from American Gothic, so it takes some cues from that. But having said that, even in the first season, we've adapted a couple of the issues from the Delano Hellblazer later on. So we're sort of dipping in and out. I've been a fan of Harold's for a long time. Since Oz, I think he's an amazing actor. I loved him on Lost, Sons of Anarchy, and when we were creating the character of Manny, he was really our first choice. And initially, it's funny because the network wasn't sure whether or not he could sort of bring the darkness or sort of the gravitas, and Harold came in, and there was a bit of an audition process that we had to go through, but he stuck with it. He's amazing, and you will see his character continue to blossom. You'll see a lot more of him as the season goes on, particularly around episodes 7, 8, and 9. There's a lot of, we start turning over a few cards with this character. He's also a great guy. Well, the first thing we did was we cast an actual British actor to play a British character. So that was one choice we made. I think at this point, fans are used to the idea of there being different iterations of things. There's been different iterations of Batman before. There was a Flash series in the 80s. There's a Flash series on now. But I would say that our show hews more closely to the source material, to the original comic books, perhaps, in the film, taking nothing away from the film. And I just know that so far, at least, the people that have seen the show pretty much feel like Matt, he really does embody John Constantine. It feels like he leapt off the page. I love the character. I love the character since he was first introduced by Alan Moore. He's a jerk. He's an asshole. And he's not a hero. And he's, we joke around like if he can say a spell, he'll say a spell. If that doesn't work, he might try to kick somebody in the balls. If that doesn't work, he might run. And it's fun to have a character like that who's saving the world, as opposed to, I've done a lot of the sort of classic spandex costume characters, and it's nice to have someone that's a true anti-hero. And so we've absolutely preserved that. But there are a lot of elements from the comic books that people will recognize. Papa Midnight rolls in episode 3, and he's a recurring character, and a lot of the other. You don't have to have read the comics to enjoy the show, but if you've read the comic books, you'll recognize 7 or 8 characters, at least within the first season. So we're in a different corner of the universe. We're in the occult universe, so there are some other DC occult characters that are showing up in the first season, so not just characters from Hellblazer. We've announced Jim Corrigan, who ultimately becomes a Spectre. He shows up, and Felix Faust, who's a character that shows up in the DC universe, he shows up later on.
Anybody from Justice League Dark?
Possibly. Lucifer will show up eventually in a slightly different iteration. There's an iteration of him that was also introduced in the Hellblazer comics, and he may be showing up in that. Lady Constantine, we don't have any immediate plans, but I would love to do some flashback episodes with that character. That would be fantastic. Maybe in the second season.